Hello there, and welcome to Andre's YouTube vlog for Monday, September 17th, 2012. In a lot of the vlogs and videos that I've posted on YouTube, you might have noticed that I am obviously somebody who's very interested in Star Trek. I'm a Trekker. And I know that the public's opinion on Trekkers in general can best be expressed on something I saw on The Simpsons, which is actually a show I also very much like, and in a way for expressing this very truthfully. I think Homer Simpson was talking to his kids about what 1990 was like, and he said it was a different time, and he mentioned that it was a time when the information superhighway was letting everybody know what some nerd thought about Star Trek. And that, to me, in short, essentially is what most people, I think, view Trekkers as. Nerds, which as far as I'm concerned is a candy. But I'm going to say this right off the bat. I can't stand being called a geek. It's a prejudice thing. A geek is somebody at a circus who shoves nails up their nose, you know? And they're somebody who will eat anything that's thrown at them, you know, just for a cheap laugh. And I think it's revolting to call an intelligent person who's really deeply interested in something a geek. It's like calling them a circus freak to call them a geek. And I'm not being a politically correct soccer mom advocate kind of person or anything like that. But, I mean, there are just some boundaries that we probably shouldn't cross. How has being a Trekker affected my own life personally? Well, that's what I'm discussing here today. Growing up, I have been watching Star Trek since the William Shatner days. And that was in the early 80s. And the Star Trek movies, like The Voyage Home, where they had whales in it, obviously, and all of that. And one of the greatest moments of my life was when I was at the age of 7 allowed to stay up till 11 p.m., which was unprecedented at that time. My family used to call them exceptions to the rule of how late I was to stay awake, to watch a premiere of this show called Star Trek The Next Generation. And the show was called Encounter at Farpoint. And they had this omnipotent entity called Q, who was manipulating this brand new crew of this brand new Enterprise, who were on the verge of making this very interesting discovery about this planet, and this great story unfolded. And for the next 7 years, I just kept watching. And this was happening during the primary years of my life, you know, that crucial age between 7 and 14, when your adult personality really begins to fully gel and fully form. It's forming by 5, but it really starts to form during those years. And shortly after that show went off the air, I made a friend who also shared my interest in Star Trek very much, and actually was assisting me at the time in helping me write my own original Star Trek series. We lost touch over the years, but we recently got back in touch. And I had mentioned to this person, you know, when we first got back in touch quite casually, that I felt the same way about Star Trek now that Miles Davis felt about jazz in 1975. That despite what they say, the old slogan Star Trek lives, that today Star Trek is dead. Television of the museum, as it were. And I get an email from this person essentially stating that maybe it is, but Star Trek should not be allowed to just die off. And the most recent Star Trek event was that a man named J.J. Abrams, who was known for the TV series Lost, did a movie based on the original cast, starring the actor Chris Pine as Captain Kirk and Zachary Quinto as Mr. Spock. Now, that was quite good. My friend made a point about it. It's a very well-plotted and well-done action movie. The characterizations are very good. But it's not Star Trek as me or my friend understand it. And here's how I understand it anyway. For me, growing up, I didn't come from a family that was particularly conformist in any possible way, culturally, racially, you name it. At least not in my area. And it was important to me to see a world where things could actually work, and all the things that were barriers in my life didn't matter. Like on Star Trek, there were people of all races working together, all cultures, and they were all quite different. And they had learned to accept those differences and get along very well together and work as a team. And as the character of Uhura said in the original Star Trek, they learned not to fear words. And there were all these advances in rocketry and science that really interested me. But I looked around me, and society wasn't really changing that much. I wanted to see the world around me change. I wanted to see it more like Star Trek. I wanted to see holodecks and tricorders and communicators. We sort of have the cell phone, but despite what they say, cellular phones, even satellite phones, they aren't Star Trek communicators. They aren't the same technology. They just used to look like them, but they're not the same thing. Why? In Star Trek The Next Generation, it was stated so well. In the Star Trek universe, which takes place in our future, and that to me is an important appeal for the show, it takes place in our future, not in some speculative science fiction world. Humanity have done away with hunger, poverty, the need for accumulating material possessions. As a matter of fact, they have something called the New World Economy. It isn't capitalism, it isn't socialism, it isn't communism. What it basically means is that money has gone the way of the dinosaur. They never explained it, but that's basically how it works. Now, in terms of being a Star Trek fan, I never realized it until recently that there may be a deeper reason why Trekkers are treated the way they are. Gene Roddenberry, the man who created Star Trek and one of my personal heroes, was an atheist. And you watch even Family Guy, and they drive the point home. Never mind homosexuals or black people or any perceived minority you can name, there's nothing that society at large, especially the more conservative end of it, dislike more than atheists. You know, heaven forbid, to use a pun, you don't acknowledge the Christian church as the sole source of faith and moral support in your life. And to me, Star Trek provided those ideals in the Prime Directive, not interfering with other cultures. The idea that freeing ourselves from poverty and the need for possessions was a good idea to improve the way we thought about things. And there was no dogma attached to it. You didn't have to sit there and worship the church of Jean-Luc Picard, or you didn't have to live in your parents' basement as the stereotypical Star Trek allegedly, supposedly did. You could just watch these characters and relate to them, relate to their experiences, and see them deal with people on other planets who are like humans used to be, and sometimes see, actually it was said in Star Trek The Next Generation, that first episode, humans are aware of their past, even if they're ashamed of it. And all of my life, everything that I have felt of value, every viewpoint I've had on society, has been based primarily on trying to make little parts of the world around me more like that more secure and reasonable Star Trek interpretation of Earth in the future as I possibly can. It's influenced almost everything I've done. And if that's what a Trekker is, I can't see that as being bad at all. And I think that more people should look at Star Trek and its meaning and what it could mean to them, and realize that what you actually see in Star Trek is not the same as the public's sometimes negative perception of its fans and viewers. That it's more than a TV show. It gives you the possibility of a future that we could have now if we really want to. And we have to really want to. So as far as I'm concerned, I realize the truth. Star Trek lives. It's just a little terminally ill right now, and we need to delicately balance its electrolytes and its bodily functions and get it back up again. Because I think society was better off for having it, and it's worse off for not having it. That's just my opinion. Live long and prosper.